Well, good afternoon and welcome to H360 Live. My name is Dave Duplay and I'm joined here in the studio this afternoon by my friend and colleague, the one, the only Miss Courtland Long from Healthy h360. Well, Courtland, it's great to see you today.
Good to see you too, Dave. Quite the intro.
It is quite the intro. I thought I'd change it up a little bit for the audience today. Well, we have a great show for you today. Courtland, you know, it's getting a little chilly outside, and with the chilly weather, we need to warm people up. And this next guest is going to be a warm-hearted story because it's Casey Snyder coming into us from the Huntington's Disease Society of America. And Huntington's disease, as we'll find out from Casey, is a very rare condition. Not a lot of people have it. We want to shine the spotlight on this disease because his association is doing such great work to build awareness and support families around the country who have a loved one or are suffering from Huntington's disease.
I know I'm really excited to talk with Casey about this condition and see how we can raise more awareness about it.
Okay, well, let's get started.
Okay, well, Casey, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So it's great meeting you at the Team Hope Walk down on the pier a couple months ago. You guys are doing such great work in the area of HD, and we really want to help support patients and families who are living with this condition. Can we start with having you tell us exactly what is Huntington's disease?
Sure, Courtland. Well, Huntington's disease is a fatal genetic disorder, and it's compared to having Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and ALS simultaneously. This is a genetic disorder, so it does get passed down from family member to family member.
So, Casey, you say it's a rare disease. Share with us what exactly does that mean? What's the prevalence of the disease, and how likely is somebody to have Huntington's disease?
Yeah, Dave. So currently in the United States, we have 30,000 active cases of Huntington's disease, with another 300,000 family members at risk for inheriting the gene. So our at-risk population here in the United States would be those family members related to the HD patients. Anyone with HD has a 50-50 chance of passing that genetic marker on to their offspring. So if you're a child of a mother or father with Huntington's disease, there is a 50-50 chance that you are going to inherit the disease.
Yeah.
So, Casey, I know that at the Team Hope Walk, there was a very special and interesting guest who's related to the history of HDSA. So can you share with us a little bit about the history and mission of the organization?
Absolutely. So HDSA started in 1967 by Marjorie Guthrie, the wife of the famed musician Woody Guthrie. Woody Guthrie had Huntington's disease and was a well-known documented case very early on with Huntington's disease. And Marjorie's mission was to really help families dealing with the many challenges that go along with dealing with Huntington's disease. And this all started around her kitchen table right here in Manhattan. And now here we are so many decades later. We have 54 chapters and affiliates of HDSA now across the country, fundraising, putting on educational events, and just raising general awareness for the HD community.
So it's all about raising awareness, but being a rare disease, how difficult is it and how challenging is it to raise awareness? And because of lack of information, or it's not a large disease, how important is it to get the word out, raise awareness to help these families who are either currently struggling with Huntington's disease or have the potential of being diagnosed with it?
Well, I really feel it's vital. It's definitely something that this is a rare disorder, and there aren't a lot of resources readily available to people as they first, find out that there is a diagnosis in their family. So it's very important for us to continue spreading the word, continuing the mission of HDSA, and provide those resources, such as the social workers that we provide, the social-led support groups around the country that we provide. Working with one of the many great palliative care facilities across the country that specialize in HD. This is really kind of a platform for us to be able to bring these patients, caregivers, and families together so that they can share and collaborate their stories and their mission and their goal for their family as they face these very challenging times.
Yeah.
Another incredible resource you have at HDSA are the Centers for Excellence, which you were sharing with us before the show. Can you tell our audience members a little bit about how the Centers for Excellence work and how they've advanced research and treatment care?
Absolutely. So currently we have 49 centers of excellence across the United States, and all of these are at healthcare facilities specializing in a neurological unit that has Huntington's disease care. HD family members and patients can go to these centers, which you can find a list of these as we call them at HDSA, a COE, Center of Excellence, listed on our website, all of them across the country. There's great social workers at these facilities. There's great opportunities for genetic testing, as well as information about the local community and how to get more involved with the HDSA family right in your local area.
Okay, so you mentioned your website. What's the website that people can go to for more information here?
They could go to hdsa.org. That is our website. There's plenty of information on the organization, also on how to get involved, and also how to donate. So anyone that's interested in making a donation in support of HDSA can also visit the website.
Yeah, it's important to note that, because donations are so important to furthering the cause and bringing education and other services to the community. So you mentioned the Center of Excellence. You mentioned your website. What are some of the other services that your organization can provide, whether you're newly diagnosed and just beginning the journey, or if you're somewhere in the journey, or you're a caregiver?
There are a lot of different resources for people to access through HDSA. As I've said before, the people that are being diagnosed themselves or have a family member, this is a very hard and challenging time, and sometimes not necessarily the moment when you're feeling your greatest about getting out there and meeting strangers and trying to network and communicate. But that's really what HDSA is all about, is providing a comfortable place for people to talk and share experiences. And so for those individuals that have recently been diagnosed or had a diagnosis in their family, I strongly suggest that they reach out and find their local social worker, their local support groups, as well as the many education days that we put on with our national partner, Teva Pharmaceuticals. These are all events where people can come out and talk to other families who are, again, facing very similar challenges in their own daily lives.
Another great event where people can come and find other families who are going through the same challenges are your Team Hope Walks, and that's
Absolutely.
where we had the
Yes.
great opportunity to meet you. We also met so many wonderful families that you are touching through the HDSA. Can you tell us about these walks and what you hope to accomplish with them?
Yeah, so personally for me, the Team Hope Walk program is my favorite part of HDSA. It is a grassroots fundraising campaign that started about 8 years ago, and we now have over 100 Team Hope Walks across the country, raising over $8 million since their inception. And this money goes directly to fund research to find a cure for Huntington's disease. Here in New York City, we have the New York City Team Hope Walk at Pier 46 every year. Our Greater New York chapter is an amazing group of volunteers who put together a fantastic event, which you got to experience.
Mm-hmm.
This, again, is another opportunity for those in the HD community to really come out, learn a little bit more about HDSA and about the updates from the medical community as far as what's happening in terms of research and education, as well as, again, connecting with those other families and friends who share your stories, share your challenges, and really just make some lighthearted fun out of a very serious and not fun situation.
Yeah. So you speak of these challenges, living with the disease, and we talk all the time about the caregivers, because I would imagine you said Huntington's disease is like having a combination of Alzheimer's or dementia, Parkinson's, and ALS. So it affects the motor skills, it affects your neurological system. I mean, it's a bad guy. And so there's these conditions. What are some of the things that when you're diagnosed, a person would experience? What are some of the signs that somebody might experience?
Yeah, It's very, very sad to watch the progression of Huntington's disease and how it really takes a toll on the human body. The first real stage that I think a lot of people see, and this is based on my conversations with our medical professionals at HDSA, are signs of what we call chorea, which are uncontrollable movements of the limbs. So it is a jerking, twitching motion that the body does without your ability to really control it. Another common symptom is, having the symptom of being very confused, or kind of losing your sense of common sense, or your normal personality traits that your family and friends kind of know to make up you. It kind of changes that personality in ways that your family and friends really start to notice a difference in your behaviors, in your reactions and actions, the way you act towards situations. And then, of course, the motor skills as well as the cognitive abilities start to deteriorate. And someone with Huntington's disease can really see these symptoms last from anywhere from 10 to 30 and 40 years. So they're living, a very long time with some really debilitating symptoms.
So let's shift gears for a minute and talk about the caregiver, because they're so important to this equation, right? And there are a lot of challenges just caring for somebody, and then you add a condition like Huntington's on top of that. What are some of the challenges, or what are some of the things that you could share with us that caregivers should look out for or think about as they're caregiving for somebody with HD?
Yeah, giving care to someone with HD is, round the clock job. Something that a lot of people, it takes several people to really care for an HD patient properly, especially in the mid to end stages of HD. The symptoms and the signs that I had just kind of described are definitely some of the things that HD caregivers should really watch out for and pay attention to. Really starting out with being a little bit more clumsy or forgetful, or not remembering where you put your keys, or where you parked your car the night before. Things like that are maybe not something that you traditionally would think this person would exhibit, is now exhibiting. And those are the signs that I think people that are dealing with HD and their family should really start to watch out for.
Yeah.
So HD, it's a family disease passed down through our genetics. What is the genetic testing like that someone goes through? Is it cheek scrape, blood test? What is the process of it?
So there is a blood test for to find out whether you have the gene, and if you're HD positive. This process usually is a several-week period, including some medical, some professional counseling. This is something that for some people is kind of a controversial test. Mm-hmm. Yes, we are getting so close to a cure. We are to the point now where we actually know where on the human gene the HD marker lies. So we are getting closer and closer to find a cure. But at this point, there is still no cure. So finding out through a genetic test that you're HD positive can be a challenging thing to accept. Mm-hmm. Because there currently is no cure. And so that is really what kind of sways people to decide whether or not to get tested for HD.
It's a tough choice, right?
Yeah, it really is.
If you see a family member, if you see a father or mother diagnosed with it, and you get to a point and you say, well, do I really want to get tested? And do I really want to know? It's a very difficult and personal choice. Do you see, based on your experience, do half the population get tested, or is there a large swing to people that say, well, I'd rather not get tested? Is there any pattern that you see here?
It's really a personal decision, and I really think, from working with a lot of wonderful volunteers and HD families, it really is something that it really comes from the individual and needs to be a decision that, obviously is not made lightly, and that is something that the individual really wants. I always try to never really bring up the option of genetic testing. I shouldn't say that. I should say persuade in terms of persuading someone. That is a very personal decision for someone to make, and we want to support the patient regardless of their decision to get tested or not.
So given that there's no cure for HD, I'm assuming there's nothing you can do to stop the development of symptoms, but is there anything one can do to delay the development?
There are many clinical trials as well as things happening in the pharmaceutical world that are showing really promising signs for Huntington's disease patients. For more information on that, I would suggest you visit our website, hdsa.org, under the research tab. We have a lot of great information about up-to-date information on what's happening related to treatments and what's, in terms of our fight towards a cure.
So you mentioned one of your partners is Teva Pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
Are they, obviously they're in the space, they're looking at new therapies. Are there things on the market today, products that, one can take to help either slow the progression down or help somebody living with some of the symptoms that are displayed in this disease?
There are currently some medications on the market that do, I wouldn't necessarily say help or slow down the progression, but I would say assist in providing a better quality of life for the patient. Those medications and treatments are definitely suggestive depending on who you speak to in terms of how well they work for an individual patient. But Teva and Lundbeck, two of our sponsors, are really leading the way in research towards a cure.
Yeah.
Before the show, we were talking about how well or not well this condition is understood in the medical and research community. So can you talk to our audience members a little bit about that landscape of, how are doctors becoming more aware of Huntington's disease, and how is this, that they're unaware really of this condition and how that affects research?
It does, and this really goes along with any rare disease. It is a challenge to raise awareness and really educate people about all of the different aspects of the disease. With the families that I work with, there have been several instances where I've been talking with a family who, they've been calling around to their local neurologists and no one has answers for them or can even really point them in the right direction. And so this is really why it is so important for us to continue the conversation about Huntington's disease and let people out in the general community know what HDSA is and what we do and who we serve. These are people that need HDSA. We are the premier resource for individuals looking for information related to Huntington's disease.
So Casey, you mentioned, for example, so if a person has been diagnosed with Huntington's disease and their child goes and gets tested and they do not have the genetic defect, they cannot then pass that on to their offspring, is that correct?
Correct, yes. So if, let's say your mother was HD positive and you got tested in your 20s and found out that you did not carry the gene, that means that you personally will never exhibit signs of Huntington's disease, neither will your children. However, if your mother had Huntington's disease and you tested positive for the gene, that means at some point in your life you are going to exhibit signs of Huntington's disease, and all of your offspring have a 50-50 chance of getting that same gene that you got from your mother.
Yeah, So today, there are currently clinical trials going on for Huntington's?
There are, yes, and like I said, there is some really great information and up-to-date info on that on the HDSA website, hdsa.org, under the research tab.
Yeah.
Just another question really quick about clinical trials. When I met you at the walk, one of the women from the teams was talking about participating in clinical trials. And she personally does not have Huntington's, but I believe that she said that she does participate in trials. So it's a possibility for someone who doesn't have a condition to participate in that trial?
In a trial, yes. So with any trial, there will be some test patients that do have an HD positive gene and some that don't. So that would be a situation where she would be one of them that don't carry the HD positive gene.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Casey, we covered a lot of ground today. What advice would you give to a family or a person who has just received that diagnosis that they have Huntington's disease?
I would strongly urge everyone in that family to come together and really just support each other. And the way that you support each other is really continue the conversation. Don't let this become something that is not talked about or brushed under the rug. This is something that if we continue the conversation and really educate our public on Huntington's disease, we can find a cure for Huntington's disease. And one day, hopefully in the not near future, that will be our reality. And we will no longer be faced with some of the many tough choices HD patients face today.
Yeah.
So speaking of continuing the conversation, can you let us know about any events that HDSA has coming up in the near future?
Absolutely. So this Saturday, October 29th, at Terrence Cardinal Cook here in Manhattan, we are doing an education day with our Greater New York chapter of HDSA. This is a Teva-sponsored event again and is free to the public, and it has some great information from medical experts as well as our local social workers and support groups on what's happening right here in the New York metropolitan area related to HDSA and the HD community.
Yep. So the important point is hdsa.gov.
.org.
.org.
Yes.
Great website.
Yes.
A lot of information, clinical trials, some tools, some things out there. You can find out where the walks are being held and all the educational programs. So again, hdsa.org. Go out there. It's important to know you can also donate. I'm assuming there's a donate button on there.
There is a donate button right on the website.
Absolutely. So it's because of people and donations like you that make this all possible, in the educational programs and the sponsors like Teva and others that are standing behind you to find a cure for Huntington's disease. So keep us posted. We'll see you at many more walks, I'm sure.
Yes.
And we're really fans of what you're doing and what your organization's doing to help build awareness. So I want to thank you once again for coming in and sharing some time with us.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, I'd like to thank you for tuning in, and I'd like to thank our sponsors for making this all possible. Remember, all of our episodes can be viewed on demand at healthyo360.com, and our podcast is always found in the iTunes Store.
Well, we love social media, and we're all over Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest using the hashtag RealStories when posting, and we would greatly appreciate it if you would do the same. On behalf of Dave Duplay, myself, and the entire HealthYo360 family, we'd like to thank you again for joining us today and look forward to seeing you again next week when we're chatting with former NFL player Ron Saul about type 2 diabetes.